crashing out, yeah. And do you see you got me falling in more times than I can get out. Down in the deep of my mind, I call for you and you're always inside. Down in the deep of my mind, how long do I got to keep you, to keep you? Down in the deep of my mind, I call for you and you're always inside. Down in the deep of my mind, trying so hard not to keep you, to keep you.
Hey guys, it's Wildkard here. Just want to give you an update on my latest build. Now, this is by far the best build I have ever made in Path of Exile. It is a Voidforge Wildstrike Slayer build. Now, this build has the highest single target DPS I've ever made. It has one-click full screen deletion clearance speed, and it is 90% physical damage reduction capped. So it's absolutely bonkers, as you've seen on my introduction video. It's super fun to play, super fast, and just outrageous. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just simply the best build I've ever made. So just a quick overview of the build. We are, in terms of our damage, we are scaling Fizz Convert to Elemental with a Voidforge. So the Voidforge basically converts the physical damage to a 300% random element with its ability. It doesn't let us do anything that's non-elemental damage, but it lets all of our elemental damage able to shock. So it's a huge increase in our damage with Voidforge. Now, the second part of the build is a combination of Masterful Form and a Replica Farrul's Fur. Masterful Form basically gives us endurance charges equal to the amount of frenzy charges we have. By having a lot of frenzy charges, we are basically able to have both our frenzy charges and endurance charges up at all times with a Replica Farrul's Fur. This basically gives us the physical damage cap, reduction cap with endurance charges, and it gives us a tremendous amount of DPS and attack speed and movement speed with frenzy charges. So those are the two core concepts we're trying to build around. Now, Masterful Form allows you to have your endurance charges equal to the amount of frenzy charges you have. What that means is it doesn't matter if you have 0 endurance charges, it will always equal to your frenzy charge, maximum frenzy charge numbers. And in combination with Masterful Form, if we put a Replica Farrul's Fur, we will always have endurance charges and maximum frenzy charges up at all times. Now, keep in mind that the Replica Farrul's Fur refreshes both frenzy and endurance charges in a cycle. So with this node here that gives you increased endurance charge duration, the cycle will actually fall off. The endurance charges will actually fall off for a split second before it's reapplied. So you actually have a small gap where your endurance charges will fall off if you only rely on this one node for endurance charge duration. So ideally, you will want to have a jewel that has a prefix which increases endurance charge duration. That will make sure that the endurance charges will have the endurance charges up all times and it will not fall off. If you can't find a jewel that has endurance charge duration for whatever reasons, then you will need to have a endurance charge duration node on the tree. Now, with other Slayer talents, they're all kind of optional. Like, you can pretty much pick anything. As you can see, I'm currently running on my character. I'm running Brutal Fervor and Endless Hunger instead of Headsman and Overwhelm. Just because the leech is sometimes a bit nicer, makes you more sustained, gives you a bit more sustain, and makes you like survivability a little bit better. Like, I hate like randomly dying to things. You don't really die much anyway, but just having this just makes it you almost like bullet. This is basically like bulletproof your build. But if you just want extra DPS, Headsman and Overwhelm are just there to give you damage. They're just, and same with impact. All these 3 nodes are just there to give you a ridiculous amount of more damage. So the talent tree is something that, this is what you're seeing here is the overall kind of pathing for the talent tree. There is a lot of little changes you can make to the tree based on your gear. So a couple things that are really important about the build. You really want to have your physical damage capped because you are using Abyssus, and it's just something that you really wanted to get your armor capped at 90%. So the armor cap at 90%, there's a soft cap at 90% and there's a hard cap at 90%. Soft cap means that you are not actually, means that you only have 90% physical damage reduction when you have your potions up. Basically, that's a soft cap. So you might be sitting at 75% damage reduction, and then you press your potions, you'll be at 90%. That is pretty good. That for mapping and everything, that is good enough. But for boss fights like Maven or Shaper or some really tough bosses, you really want that 90% hard cap. So you're always running around with 90% physical damage reduction, even if your potions are not available. That is what I have, but depends on your gear. Depends on, yeah, it really depends on your gear and depends on your level. You might not be able to get 90% hard cap, and sometimes you might not even get 90% soft cap. So one of the things that you want to do with your talent tree is you actually want to get armor nodes so that you actually do get the 90% cap, to get that damage reduction cap. It's really important to have your damage reduction as close to 90% as you can. So some of the nodes that you want to consider for your armor reduction is Cloth and Chang. So evasion and armor with the tree, we are converting all evasion into armor with iron reflexes. So you might want to take these nodes to give you some extra elemental resistance and armor. So these are really good nodes. Some of these life nodes here has extra evasion and armor as well, so that's really good. And then also you might want to path down here and take these life nodes here, which gives you armor as well. And if you're really desperate, there are armor nodes here with the onslaught, a slight bit of armor here with onslaught. And also if you're really desperate, like when I was leveling, you might want to take these armor nodes here. The second issue you're gonna have is resistances. So there is quite a few unique in your build, so the resistance might be really hard for you to get from just a few pieces of rare items. So basically, a lot of times, again, these nodes here are really good because it also gives you resistances. So definitely take these nodes at the start. It gives you both armor and elemental resistances. Once your gear gets up, in fact, these 2 nodes, I had these nodes all the way until very recently. I got enough gear to get rid of these. So you might have these nodes forever. You might never take out these nodes because they're just so good. It gives you resistances and armor. But eventually you might get to a point where you no longer have resistance issues. You can take them out. And the other nodes you can have resistance are these ones, the resistance here. And these nodes gives resistance and armor as well. So these nodes are also really good, and you might want to take these at the start of the build, at the start of your journey, to really get that armor cap and the resistance cap as well. And it's something that you wanted to, as your gear goes out, you want to just to take them out and put it into other nodes. You're starting on Slayer side, you want to path over to the Juggernaut side, and then you want to go down this way, and then you want to just go over to the Assassin side as quickly as you can to get the Frenzy nodes. You want to get the Frenzy nodes. Sorry, you don't want to get the Frenzy nodes until you get Farrul's Fur. Once you get Farrul's Fur, you want to rush over and get as many Frenzy Fur nodes as you can. So some of the key nodes are this one here. You can get a Dew Socket in here, and you put a Thread of Hope, and that gives you access to both Endurance charges and the Premier node of Frenzy charges, 2 Frenzy charge Premier nodes as well. So these 2 are really big nodes with one of these Thread of Hope jewels. And also one of the 2-hander crit node here becomes available as well. So it's super good spot to put this Thread of Hope Crimson Jewel. Incredibly efficient. Iron Reflexes is absolutely vital for the build. Now, at the beginning, you might not want to use this when your gear is really low because it doesn't really convert much of your evasion to armor. Like if you have a lot of... So you want it to kind of like judge you wanted to get this node as much as you eventually, but it really depends on like how much evasion you have. You don't really want to use this node if you have like no evasion and you click on it, it doesn't do much, it's waste to the point, right? So you kind of want to have you want it to be able to convert a little bit of your evasion before you use it. So as you can see here, I'm actually converting 27% of my evasion chance, which is quite substantial into armor. And this is something that, again, will help you get into that 90% hard cap on your armor reduction. This cluster jewel here is quite one of the very important ones for the build. So the evasion here obviously gives you a bit of armor because of iron reflexes, it converts them. And you want to get a large cluster jewel that has Bloodscent and Feel the Fight. The third one is kind of optional, Heavy Hitter, and sometimes you can get there's two other ones you can get. They're all kind of similar in terms of DPS. This node only exists to push Bloodscent and Feel the Fight closer to the starting area. If you don't have this node, if you have a jewel that just have Bloodscent and Feel the Fight, Bloodscent will end up in this area here, which means you got to path longer to get. You got to waste extra point to get Bloodscent. Having this one here, having Heavy Hitter here, it pushes Bloodscent into this spot here, so you'll be able to access it right away on the tree. So you'll save your point eventually. So, but the actual node is just there. It's just there as an option for you, as you can pick it as you see fit, basically. So Bloodscent is really important because it gives you rage. Rage just gives you added physical damage and movement speed and attack speed. And having this basically enables you to gain rage with your attacks. And as I mentioned before, Voidforge scales off physical damage, and rage gives you added physical damage per rage point. So it is really high amount of base physical damage getting added into your Voidforge. Now, Feel the Fight is one of the things that gives you Mana Leech and some damage. So before you get Feel the Fight, you will take Mana Leech nodes on the tree. So having Feel the Fight is basically a upgraded mana node. That's basically what it is. It's a Mana Leech node that has extra DPS on it. So it's just super good node that you can have instead of Mana Leech node that does nothing but Mana Leech. That's basically what Feel the Fight is. And then you have two sockets you can use to put extra jewels in there. So you're gonna need these sockets for intelligence mostly, and potentially armor. And then if you have any extra one, and once you cap on those, you can put in some jewels like this one, this one that I have here, Faux Hope, that just has critical multiplier, critical damage, and then attack speed. Just gives you super high amount of DPS as well. So you will use these to fill up your resistances, your armor, your intelligence at the beginning. But as your gear gets better, you can take them out for more damage. You can put in a Watcher's Eye if you want. Watcher's Eye, for my build, Watcher's Eye, unless you get a double Hatred Watcher's Eye, something like this is actually better than just a single Hatred mod. So it depends on how rich you are. If you can get a double Hatred mod, you can actually just really kick up the damage by another like 3 million or so, 3-4 million or so. So it's quite a handy big cluster juice area here. And then we're moving on. These damage nodes are quite nice, but these again are not in high priority. You want to take sword damage to these nodes here. These are high priority, so you want to get these as you path along. These ones you want to get them towards the end, like after everything's kind of mapped out. After you're level 85 or something, you want to get these ones. You want to get these ones kind of soonish. Here we have a Unnatural Instinct. It gives you resistances and evasion, which is armor. So it's really good. This jewel has for this build has probably the highest amount of benefit you can get out of it. So you get evasion, which is armor, which is all you need. Elemental resistance, which is you need that for the build. You get attack speed, you get crit, you get accuracy, which is your build is actually really low on accuracy, and you get 1 life node here. So frenzy charge duration, frenzy charge duration is kind of important as well, but it's not that critical. So everything here is actually good. So this Unnatural Instinct is like 90% efficiency, like 90% efficiency in terms of the nodes that he has. The only one that doesn't really do much are this, like even this one does a little bit, it's not like completely useless. So it's the efficiency for this duel, for this build, is super high and super good. So we'll come back up here. We wanted to go this way, and so these nodes here gives you life, damage, and evasion rating, which is armor, which is all we need. So these nodes are really good, and then these nodes are also really good. It's just DPS, damage penetration. These nodes are actually better than Primeval Force. So get these nodes before these ones. You want to come up here, these nodes here, this section here, the assassin area, which gives you life and crit, which is exactly what the build is about. Extra frenzy node here and some life leech from Blood Drinker. So this is kind of one of the nodes you kind of want to get as soon as you can to give you life leech, and you can take out your mana flask basically. And that is the overall tree. Now, earlier on in your build, you might be also lacking a bit of accuracy, so these sword nodes might be really good for you at the start to get your accuracy up. Once that's up, you can take them out and put them into these nodes here, or maybe these nodes here. And final thing, our Anointment is Whispers of Doom, just gives us an additional curse for extra DPS. We are running Wildstrike, and we're running Tri-Element. The build is pretty similar to a previous guide I've made with Elemental Hit. We are using a Trinity support gem that will give us damage based on the resonance levels we have, and the resonance levels are gained when we hit the target with different elements. And with Wildstrike, all the elements are randomly assigned, so with a high attack speed, we're going to be hitting all 3 elements anyway. And also the Voidforge converts our physical damage into 300% additional element of a random element. So you're hitting random element with the Wildstrike, random element with the Starforge conversion, and Voidforge conversion, and whatever random elements you have on your gear is also hit at all times. So you're basically gonna have resonance at 50%, at 50 at all times. There's no way for it to drop off. The amount of elemental damage is hitting at the same time. There's no way for that to drop anything lower than 50%. Especially with the super high attack speed that you have on the build. Awaken Multistrike, just that's something that gives us the attack speed. So it's really high synergy in that regard. We'll look at close combat in a second. Awaken melee physical damage. This one, again, as we talked about, scaling that physical damage really scales the elemental damage on top. And also the awaken melee physical damage has a really important thing. With quality, it gives you chance to intimidate enemies, and intimidate makes enemy take 10% more damage from attacks. So that 10% chance to intimidate is really what awaken melee physical damage is there for. It's there for the base damage, yes, but the intimidate is there. That's the really important part from the duel. Awaken elemental damage is just more damage from elemental attacks, which is really good. Now, close combat is a gem that exclusively used for bossing. It gives you just ridiculous amount of damage when you're close to your target, but when you're clearing the map, it's not really like doing much, especially when you're hitting things with your chain lightning from your Wildstrike. That's really far away, so the efficiency from close combat becomes a lot lower when you're clearing maps. So what you want to do when you're clearing maps, you want to use a Ancestral Call support. So you want to use a Awaken, and this is what I use, Ancestral Call. And what this does is, when you hit 3 additional attacks will come out, which also hit 3 additional targets. So you basically have 4 sets of Wildstrike going off at once, and that is how I delete the whole map, delete the whole screen every click, because the additional targets that come out, they're also gonna, so there's gonna be a chain lightning shooting out from you, and then there's 3 other targets will be shooting lightnings, fireballs, and icy waves at a random pattern at all times. That is why you can see all the crazy one full screen clears that you see at the start of the video, and it's from the ancestral core support gem. That's what makes the cleave so ridiculous. And when you're doing bosses, just swap it for the other jewel. So we're running Herald of Purity. Herald of Purity, as I mentioned before, Voidforge scales of physical damage. So Herald of Purity adds to that base physical damage for the Voidforge, and then that gets converted into elemental damage. So it's just Herald of Purity is ridiculously good. And we're also using a ring, Circle of Guilt, which buffs our Herald of Purity, and it gives us physical damage reduction. If you have, so this is not even the best ring. You could technically upgrade this to have Herald of Purity have increased buff effect, and Herald of Purity grants increased physical damage instead of the physical damage reduction. If you have enough gear to have yourself hard capped without additional physical damage reduction, that will be the next step up. In fact, I haven't even seen one available that's got a +1 frenzy charge on it. So you can actually so getting this ring without additional frenzy charge is quite cheap, and that's what you should start with. And once you have the money, you want to get the +1 frenzy charge prefix with this ring, and that is where you get one of the additional frenzy charges you can get from the build. So yeah, so technically if you can get +1 frenzy charges, Herald of Purity has increased buff effect and increased physical damage while affected by Herald of Purity. As the mods, your damage can go even higher than what I have here. We're running a Hatred, which is pretty standard. Precision is just there to make sure that our hit chances are high and also give us extra crits. So you might want to get, so I actually have to run a 20 precision to get my hit chance to cap for evasive targets as well. But normally when you're clearing maps, you don't need precision. You want precision for boss fights because you won't have 100% hit chance. But when you're clearing maps, you can just run Herald of Ash for that extra bit of clearance. So in terms of damage difference, it's a little bit damage different. Like it's a little bit lower of the Herald of Ash, but run Herald of Ash when you are clearing the map. Run precision when you are fighting a boss. We have Leap Slam, which is our movement skill, but it's also our buff skill, kind of like a support buffing skill. So we have 2 6 links available. One of the 6 links is for our Wildstrike, and the second 6 link we put a Leap Slam into it. So you want a Leap Slam, Blood Magic, which really like you really don't want to be wasting mana with your Leap Slam. So you want a Blood Magic here, so your Leap Slam you can Leap Slam reliably without using your mana. Faster attacks, if you don't really need faster attacks just there to make it you zoom a little bit faster. You can actually take it out, it's not really that important. What is important is having Hextouch and Elemental Weakness. That extra curse that we have is there for the Elemental Weakness and for a Assassin's Mark. So the Assassin Mark is from the ring, Shaper Ring. I'll talk about the gear in a sec. But the second curse is Elemental Weakness. These two are really, really high damage multipliers for our build. So Hextouch into Leap Slam. I have a Rage support here because even with the Cluster Jewel that has Bloodscent, which gives us 1 Rage, it's not really that efficient because it has a timer cap. It has you can only get 1 Rage per second. So it takes a really long time to actually get your full Rage up. So what you can do is having Rage attached to Leap Slam, you can actually get 2 Rage when you hit something. You get 1 Rage from the Rage support, and you get 1 Rage from the tree. And the Rage support has higher Rage Gan as well, so you can actually spam your Leap Slam to really quickly get your Rage up. So as I mentioned before, you don't really need faster attacks. You can actually take that out and switch to Fortify to give yourself a bit more defensive option as well. If you don't really need that defensive option because you already have 90% armor cap, you can actually just take it out and put faster attack into it and just give yourself a little bit more movement speed around the map. But yeah, the Fortify is or faster attack is completely optional which one you choose. So that's our second 6 link, and we are using Ice Golem for a bit of crit, whatnot, crit and accuracy. Ancestral War Chief is just there to call. It's just the calling strikes there, and it gives us a bit of a damage buff as well. Gives a bit of a damage, yeah. But it's there mostly for the calling strikes. We have Blood Rage, which gives us attack speed, and Assassin's Mark, as I mentioned, is our second curse, which apply from the ring. Now let's look at the items. One of the key aspects of the build is Voidforge, the weapon. So when you're looking for the weapon, you really want to have a perfect physical damage roll. Once you get that perfect physical damage roll, you want it to go to a crafting table in incursion crafting table and try to get that 27, maybe even 28 quality onto the sword, because every additional physical damage on the sword scales exponentially into damage. Like it's 3 times more, basically 3 times more damage because it's converted at 300%. So it's just every point of damage you're getting 300% more out of physical damage. You get 300% more as elemental, basically. Now, one of the best items to build that is a Abyssus. It just has 40 to 60 added physical damage to attacks. Crit multiplier is just absolute bonkers. Just adds that physical damage that we can get 3 times the return with Voidforge by converting it into elemental damage. So one of the reasons that Abyssus and that I stress so much about having armor cap is the fact that we're running Abyssus, because it makes you take 42% increased physical damage. So every point of armor, so even at 90%, right? Even at 90% armor cap, you're actually taking 14% more damage, 14% physical damage. You're not actually taking 10% physical damage, you're actually taking 14%. Now, every point below 90%, the damage you take increases exponentially. So that's why it's really, really important to have enough. So if you have 80%, physical damage reduction, so you're taking 20% physical damage, the 42% increased physical damage you're taking means that you're actually going to be taking 28%, almost 29% physical damage. So it just keeps going. So that every point missing below 90%, it just keeps going up. So if you use 30%, you're actually taking over 40% extra physical, 42% physical damage. You're actually taking just way more damage than you should be. So having that physical damage cap is really, really, really important for Abyssus. Otherwise, you're just gonna be dying a lot. Now, probably the single most important item in the build is the Replica of Farrul's Fur. This is non-negotiable. Without this build wouldn't work. The fact that it gives you maximum frenzy and the endurance charges is just makes the whole build work. It synergizes perfectly with the Masterful Form, so you're gonna have full frenzy charges and full endurance charges at all times. Gloves, you just want to be. It's the other place where you can get additional frenzy charges. Ideally, you want to get something like this with frenzy charges as a prefix. I got a pair of gloves that has this as a prefix, and then I re-rolled the rest of the gloves. I just spammed essence on the rest of the gloves to get the mods that I want, especially the attack speed. But the frenzy charge is the most important thing on the gloves. Otherwise, you can potentially get a corrupted version that has frenzy charges as well. So you can either get a corrupted one with the extra frenzy charges, or if you're lucky like me, you can get a synthesized mod as a prefix. The boots is quite important. It's Darkray vectors. So this is one of the few. This is the boot that gives you 1 frenzy charges, and it buffs the effectiveness of your frenzy charges. It gives you movement speed per frenzy charge. It gives you the reduced frenzy charge duration doesn't really do much because you have a lot of frenzy charge duration nodes in your tree. So your frenzy charge isn't actually, even with the 40% reduced frenzy charge duration, your frenzy charges are not going to fall off. So it doesn't really matter. Reduced light radius, yeah, okay, whatever. 2% chance to dodge per frenzy charge. So this actually gives you 20% chance to dodge when you have 10 frenzy charges. It's actually really good. Amulet, it's kind of optional. Just want to make sure you have Whispers of Doom as the Anointment, and you want to get added physical damage, some crit, some life, and then you want it to get, ideally, Hatred has reduced mana reservation. If you don't have Hatred reduced mana reservation, you are not going to be able to run Herald of Ash. You're just going to have to run a low level precision. So you can't run Herald of Ash. You have to just run like a level 10 precision instead. So it's not like huge, but it's a little bit of something. You want to get a ring that with Assassin's Mark, ideally level 12, but I didn't get one that was good with a good roll on it. So I got this one, a level 8 Assassin's Mark, which is the most important thing. And then ideally you want to have a steel ring, which adds to that physical damage that we wanted to really scale with the Voidforge. Circle of Guilt, as I kind of mentioned before, you wanted to get Hero Purity has increased buff effect. That is the highest DPS mod. Second highest DPS mod is increased physical damage while affected by Herald of Purity. And then depends on whether you can get physical damage reduction capped at 90%. You wanted to get the mod that I have. You might want to get the mod that I have here. 4% additional physical damage reduction while affected by Herald of Purity. With the Synthesis Prefix, you want to have +1 maximum frenzy charges. That is very important for the build. That gives a 1 frenzy charges and 1 endurance charge. The bell, you just want to have something with pretty much triple tier 1 resistance, because this is one of the few items where you can get resistance on it quite easily, and maybe a bit of damage on top. When it comes to Flasks, it's pretty straightforward. You just want all the DPS Flasks you can basically get. Bottle Faith, you want a Diamond Flask, remove Curse on the Diamond Flask. You want a Wise Oak. This is the best Flask that we have. The Wise Oak is really important. You want to have your resistance triple balanced for the Wise Oak. Okay, the Wise Oak basically increases your damage when it's triple balanced. You reduce all 3 elements damage taken from all 3 elements by 10%, and it gives you 15% elemental penetration for all 3 of your elements by 15%, up to 15%. So it basically reduces your elemental damage taken and increase all of the damage you've done. So it's just absolutely insane for the build. But you have to be triple balanced in resistance. You might have to tweak a little bit, and you might not be able to get that triple balance for a very long time. But that is something that you want to strive for. If you can't get a triple balanced, running a Taste of Hate is actually better. So run a Taste of Hate if you're not triple balanced. But if you are triple balanced like me, a Wise Oak is the perfect item. Lion's Roar, perfect item. This is where you get your soft damage cap with the 3000 armor from Lion's Roar. So if I'm actually 1% below the threshold. So the Lion's Roar will give you like quite a bit of physical damage reduction. Like I think it's like maybe 10%. So like so you have to see for yourself. So if you can't get the card cap 90%, having a soft cap at like 80% and using Alliance Roar to push yourself to 90%, that is also very good enough. A Life Flask, I have removed Bleed. You can either use remove Bleed, or depends on the fight. You might want to use a remove Freeze as well, and you might want to use remove Freeze here instead of remove Curse in boss fights. So it depends on what situation you're in. You might want to swap these two around for Freeze immune or Bleed immune. Now the jewels, as we spoke about, Unnatural Instinct, Thread of Hope, and then everything, this large class of jewel, these are kind of like your mandatory. Everything else is kind of just there for extra DPS. And then to fix, so you want to use these jewels for one of them, endurance charge on one of the jewels, and you wanted to have elemental resistance to get yourself resistance capped and hopefully triple balanced. And then if you still might want to get some jewels for your int, the more int you can get, the better, because one of your curses, elemental weakness, I can only run at level 16 because my int isn't high enough. So if my int goes up, it actually does a lot more damage once you get the level up. So having more int is incredibly good for your damage as well. So use these jewels to get your int, get your resistances, and potentially your armor if you're short as well. And also you can also run these cluster jewels. So if you're doing maps that has a lot of chaos damage, you might want to run one of these cluster jewels that gives you chaos resist. Let me have a look at it. Anti-venom. So you want to get a small cluster jewel like this with anti-venom. Okay. So what anti-venom does is it gives you basically a ton of chaos resist. So if you get yourself one of these jewels with double, so the jewels has 12 plus 12% chaos resistance as an enchant prefix, and then you can roll chaos resist suffix, so you can get something like this: 12% chaos resistance and a 5% chaos resistance on top. So then if you pick these nodes and anti-venom, it's you can almost get to 0. So with these 3 nodes, you're pretty much going to be safe for any kind of, like, even Cyrus fights. You're going to be pretty safe with chaos damage. You just have to take out, 3 points from somewhere, maybe potentially take out these nodes here for this bit of extra chaos resistance. So that's something that's an optional thing that you could potentially do. Depends on your situation to use. Generally speaking, you're gonna have just too much damage to kill the bosses anyway, and unless you if you don't potato yourself into into the triple beam or something, you're gonna be fine. You don't really need it. And then you can also run, if you're really wealthy, you can run a triple Watcher's Eye, a Watcher's Eye with double hatred mod, or potentially a hatred and a precision mod. So you can potentially add a critical damage for hatred, and then crit multi or attack speed for precision, or double hatred, or even double precision could give you a lot of damage as well. So you can just take out one of these and put in the Watcher's Eye, that would give you even more damage. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the guide. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you got any questions, feel free to put in the comment section. I do stream sometimes on Twitch, so maybe you can catch me there. Otherwise, you can post me in game if you have any questions. Yeah, thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.